All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to tackle one of the most mind-bending essays out there, Aldous Huxley's profound exploration, Heaven and Hell.
So let's start with this. Seriously, have you ever stopped to think about it? Across, countless cultures and all through history, paradise is always this place full of shimmering gems, brilliant light. Why that? Why is that specific vision so incredibly universal?
Well, Huxley had this pretty wild idea. He thought, what if we're not just making this stuff up? What if the blueprint for heaven, and, for hell too, is actually a real place, a destination we can visit, but it's located entirely inside our own heads?
So, okay, how did Huxley even begin to map this inner world? Let's dive into his big idea, the mind's other worlds.
Huxley uses this amazing metaphor. He basically says, hey, think of your own mind like a planet, a huge, mostly unexplored planet. Sure, we know our own little home continent, our everyday thoughts, really well, but what about the rest of it?
So he kind of splits this inner planet into two big areas. First, you've got the old world. That's us. Our personality, our memories, that voice in our head, you know the one. But then beyond that are the new worlds, these vast, strange continents of the subconscious. And way, way out there, the world of pure visionary experience. And Huxley gives this farthest out continent a name, the mind's antipodes. Now, this isn't just a fancy word for imagination. He's saying it's a real psychological place. And it feels just as real and foreign as, say, Australia would have felt to someone in 18th century Europe. It's got its own rules, its own inhabitants. It's its own thing.
Okay, so if this place is real, how do you get there? Can you buy a ticket? Well, Huxley had some pretty specific thoughts on the best vehicles for the trip.
He lays out three main ways to get there. The first is chemicals. He's talking about things like mescalin. The second is through psychology, like really deep hypnosis. And the third, well, it's the ancient path of asceticism. Think of hermits fasting in a cave, or monks in deep meditation, cutting off all sensory input.
So, here's the really important part. How do these things work? Huxley's theory is that our brain is normally like a filter or a reducing valve. It's constantly blocking out this torrent of information that isn't absolutely necessary for us to, survive. These methods, the chemicals, the hypnosis, the fasting, they basically punch a hole in that filter. And suddenly all this mental data that's usually hidden comes flooding into our awareness. It has no survival value, but man, is it profound.
All right, so we've picked our vehicle, we've weakened the brain's filter. What do we actually see when we get to the mind's antipodes?
Okay, so what's the landscape like? Well, there are some common landmarks. First, there's this preternatural light. It's not coming from a source, it seems to shine out of everything. The colors are unbelievably vivid, like nothing you've ever seen. And everything feels charged with this deep, powerful meaning. People also consistently see these living, shifting geometric patterns that morph into the most incredible buildings and landscapes. Now, it's super important to understand this is not like a regular dream, right? Most of our dreams are pretty much black and white, and they're always about us, our own worries, our own wishes. But this visionary experience, it's bursting with color, it feels completely alien, and it feels, well, given, like you're watching a movie, not writing the script. And this Huxley quote just nails that feeling. It's not that you're imagining it. It feels more like a curtain was pulled back and you were finally allowed to see what was there all along. And this is where it gets really fascinating. Huxley says this inner world isn't just some private trip. He thinks it's the actual source code for our shared ideas of paradise, for our art, and for our religions. I mean, seriously, think about it. Why do we love shiny rocks so much? Diamonds, rubies, emeralds? From a survival point of view, it makes zero sense. They're useless. But what if there's a reason we're all so drawn to them? Huxley's explanation is just so cool. He suggests that we love gems because they're like little souvenirs we brought back from the mind's antipodes. They're the closest thing we have in the physical world to those glowing, self-lit stones of fire that you see in those visionary landscapes. And it's not just gems. Other things can work like little portals to get us back there. Polished metal, the way light hits stained glass in a church, even just a flame dancing in the darkness. He thinks they trigger a kind of memory in our unconscious, a memory of that other world.
But, and this is a big but, the journey doesn't always end in paradise. The mind's antipodes have a shadow self, a terrifying mirror image of heaven.
So, the heavenly vision is all about bliss, a feeling of oneness, of expanding beyond yourself. The negative vision, or hell, is the complete opposite. It's an experience of what Huxley calls an indwelling horror. There's no bliss, just this unbearable pressure and a crushing, claustrophobic feeling. And get this. This is a direct quote from a schizophrenic patient describing her own infernal vision. She called it the country of lit-upness. Think about that. The light is still there, it's still intense, but it's not beautiful or divine. It's a harsh, shadowless, and just plain malignant glare. It's the same visual qualities as heaven, but the emotional meaning is flipped completely upside down.
So what's the switch? What flips the experience from heaven to hell? Huxley is crystal clear about this. It's not something out there. It's something in here. It's our own psychological state. Negative emotions, fear, anger, hate, they're like a roadblock. They don't just keep you out of heaven, they actually send you spiraling into its opposite.
And Huxley makes one last really crucial point. The visionary experience, whether it's heaven or hell, is still a world of opposites. You are a separate observer looking at something. But the mystical experience, he says, is a whole other level. That's when all the opposites dissolve. It's a direct union with the fundamental reality of everything.
And that really brings us to the heart of what Huxley is saying, leaving us with this massive question to think about. What if heaven and hell aren't places we go after we die? What if they are instead real psychological territories that exist inside every single one of us, right now, just waiting to be discovered?